Should I go ahead and start?
Go.
Okay. This week on the Virtual Skeptics, Bob says Thomas Nelson actually does care about facts, sort of. Eve is seeing things in stuff. Sharon talks about unconventional parenting techniques. And Tim talks about Google's legal issues and possibly an update from our favorite Depeche Mode fan. I'm your host, Brian Gregory, and I'm just happy I made it through the intro. Yay! So, there you go. It'll be much better with music. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, we've always got to have something to improve next week.
Okay, someone is already not muting when they need to. Just saying. So let's see. This is our normal announcement segment. Okay, I won't announce it all the time. The idea is we're gonna do this every Wednesday around 8 o'clock. I didn't set up the little app to watch comments, but I will do that shortly. The idea is that if anybody comments questions, we could possibly try to work them in, because this is live. Let's see. Upcoming events.
Aren't you going to introduce us?
You did.
Just wondering. All right.
It's in the show notes.
Good. Go.
I was trying to keep it short. With the music, it kind of works great. So
Oh.
I apologize for everybody that couldn't get the music to work, and I'm all whiny. Okay, there's an announcement about Dragon Con, because there's a couple people on here that are going to Dragon Con. Who's going to Dragon Con?
I'm going Dragon Con. My first Dragon Con.
Yay! What happens at Dragon Con? Someone tell me what happens at Dragon Con. Why do we need to go to Dragon Con?
A whole bunch of stuff happens at Dragon Con. Take over 4 or 5 hotels. There's somewhere between 30 and 50,000 people, many of them dressed as science fiction characters.
Bronies.
Taking over downtown Atlanta. And skeptics.
It's absolutely bonkers and totally worth it. You'll all make it. You'll never miss it unless you move to Wisconsin.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that is sad. I'm sad too because I'm not making it this year, but I have another reason.
Robot sex?
Robot sex. Yes, that is why I am not going to Dragon Con this year. Because of robot sex. And I'm not even going to explain that.
There's a track for that, I think, at Dragon Con.
Yes, there is. Who's scribbling? One more announcement. One of us is over a half century old.
Yay!
Anybody who doesn't clap? Because it's not me.
Yay!
Everybody wish Tim Farley a happy birthday. Actually,
Yay.
it's a few days late, but hey, I wanted to work that in.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you shared your birthday, the very date of your birth, with Miss Cleo.
Yes.
The psychic friend.
Yeah,
She got the woo that you didn't.
Yep. I noticed that's not in skeptic history.
It should be in there.
Yeah.
I don't normally tweet her because there's other things on August 12th, but
Yeah. More important things, of course.
yeah. I think it's in the iPhone app.
Okay. I didn't check. I just I looked for other people that were born on that day.
You mean me, not Miss Cleo.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I did the iPhone app, I didn't think I was. I didn't think anybody knew who I was.
Ow.
Who is doing that? That's not me, is it?
That might be me. I touched paper.
Don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Touch.
All right. I'm not hearing that, so okay. Yeah.
Well, on that note, why don't we get started? I think Bob, it's the best order, right? The Bob, Eve. We're not in order. I just noticed that. You guys are not sitting in order.
Yeah.
Change your seats. There you go.
Yeah.
I think we could
But
do
it's-
musical
it's-
chairs.
Yep. Bob, Eve, Sharon, and Tim. So, Bob, you're up.
Okay.
Tell us about the facts.
Okay. You can see me moving and everything, right?
Can't see you moving.
No.
No, you can't. Oh, that's
Nope.
too bad.
You look normal. though.
Everybody's frozen on my screen. But
You're
I'll just
frozen on
kind-
ours.
let's just talk. David Barton is a conservative activist and a former vice chairman of the Texas Republican Party, who's written a number of books about American history, which are very popular among Christian homeschoolers. Now, he doesn't have any formal training in history. He has a degree in education from Oral Roberts University, which is, almost as good.
Yeah. Ew.
Yeah.
What good is that?
Well, apparently you can do lots of speaking tours. Now, having that degree wouldn't preclude the possibility that he'd eventually write a useful book. The fact that his conclusions run counter to the collective judgment of all historians at all universities ever around the world should raise some red flags. Well, that and the fact that he was hired to teach at Glenn Beck University, but wait for laughter. Okay.
Yes, waiting.
Thank you. All right, so
where's that laugh track?
I know.
Yeah.
Joke.
In truth, David Barton is essentially the Ken Ham of American history. He asserts against all evidence that America's founding fathers never intended for the separation of church and state, that the U.S. is primarily a Christian nation founded by evangelicals, that the First Amendment protections may extend only to Christians or maybe some other monotheists. Basically, he's saying that the whole Enlightenment thing was something that just happened to other countries. As you might imagine, supporting this thesis entails not just ignoring massive amounts of legitimate scholarship, but also producing a rather heaping pile of shoddy, amateurish scholarship and a long list of quotes allegedly from primary sources that you can't.
Whoa!
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Well, that's disappointing.
I just had a question on the
He's
tip
still
of my tongue,
talking.
too.
We had a question where?
I just had a question, as he's talking.
For him.
Yeah, questions for him. Well, he can
I'm
come
going to
back
go
on.
tell him to stop talking.
He's still going.
Hang on.
Aw. Actually, why don't you get Sharon, because you're next.
Sure.
Sharon.
I can go. I'm prepared as long as I don't cut out. It's a possibility. So, I have this very disturbing story with
I've been looking forward to this,
some
by the way.
strange twists, some huge question marks. So, Dr. Melvin Morse is a pediatrician in Delaware who was arrested this past week accused of endangering his 11-year-old daughter. The arrest originated from a report that he grabbed her and dragged her by the ankle across a parking lot, and he was charged with a misdemeanor for that. But when the girl was later interviewed, she said that repeatedly in the past, as a form of discipline, her father, Morse, held her head under a running faucet to simulate waterboarding.
Gotta love it.
Yeah, it's horrible to even think about. So she also said the mother was present and did not stop it. So now both parents are charged with felony child endangerment. So if that's not hard enough, now it gets weird. Morse is widely known as a researcher of near-death experiences in children. And he's written several books on this and appeared on TV describing the stories that children have told him about what it's like to die. So the police put forth their suspicion in the press that Morse attempted to induce a near-death experience in his child to aid in the research. Now, you can induce a near-death experience through oxygen deprivation, and it's currently thought that oxygen deprivation is what causes the symptoms of near-death experiences, such as seeing the light, tunnel vision, flush of memories. So several victims have recovered from this type of brain trauma and report near-death experiences. So if he did do this waterboarding and did intend to induce a near-death experience, that would be completely unethical, as research, and it's obvious. Yeah, I mean, obviously, not even to mention the sheer cruelty of it, and you could never use such findings, so that's questionable right there. But then it came to light that the 11-year-old child is alleged to have falsified a previous abuse claim about her half-sibling because she didn't want him or her, I'm not clear which, living in the house.
Well, that was going to be my question.
Yeah.
Is how do you know that this kid is telling the truth?
Right.
And
It
so there's history there, yeah.
Yeah, so Morse and his lawyers say that this waterboarding claim is her means of getting attention. And Morse says that the police are overreacting and expecting the worst. And he cites another abuse case of a pediatrician, Earl Bradley, who was convicted a year ago of molesting his young patients. Now, to me, I don't see the connection there, but Morse claims he gave a deposition against Bradley in that case. And since the Bradley case, the abuse laws have been strengthened. You have to report abuse, and I guess the police take it a bit more seriously even if there's a claim by a child. So Morse's medical license was immediately suspended. Now, one more bit to throw into this. At the same day he was arrested on the initial child endangerment charges, remember it was just a misdemeanor, that was July 13th, Morse was also charged with threatening to kill a 65-year-old man. I guess there were charges filed against that. So Dr. Morse is clearly a troubled man, very troubled, both psychologically, and he's also financially troubled because he is having financial problems with making a living, I suppose. But we really can't discount that the police may be inferring too much from his research work. Like if they checked his computer files and everything and they found this research that they're connecting.
Some kind of emotional reaction to discovering he's a mad scientist.
You sort of can see that might happen. And even the child could have made up the story based on his suggestions. We don't really know because what the truth is about these waterboarding and his events and his intentions, we don't know. It looks like it may end up with just eyewitness testimony to decide, and we all know that that's a very shaky form of evidence. So lots of things going on here. Obviously there's some truth to it. There's some very questionable claims that are being made, and when this first came out in the press, it did sort of connect his near-death experience research with children, but it's a difficult story for anybody to imagine that you could actually do that to a child, but he has these allegations of abusing his child in the past. He's emotionally troubled. He's in a tough situation or a bad situation right now. He's said some very odd things in the past. It's hard to make sense out of any of it.
So he was accused of he was trying to kill somebody. What was that?
Apparently, there was this terroristic threat on the same day that he threatened to kill somebody. There's not a lot of information on this.
It's clear that he's got problems.
He's got issues. Yeah. So this came out in the press, and it was immediately connected to his research, and we're not sure if that's the case, but you can see how that connection can easily be made in the press by the police.
Yeah.
It's just a very disturbing story all around.
How do you see this playing out? I mean, is it you think it's going to end up in court before they resolve it, or?
Yeah, and you're dealing with a child and who's susceptible to suggestion, like anybody is. I mean, anybody is suggestible to suggestion via a therapist, which has in the past been a
or they just
problem.
Get ideas.
Yeah, memory is crap. I mean, our memories are really terrible, and if the child is getting a feedback response, whether that be attention or maybe she's having family troubles, or it could be a myriad of things, that she's getting the response that she's looking for, she's going to keep telling that story. So we really don't know what the truth is, because it doesn't seem like we have any evidence, unless Morse wrote something somewhere. There's been rumors that his colleagues have seen that he's having trouble adapting to normal life, or he's having issues and psychological problems. So I don't know how much that's going to play into it, but the children have been taken away from the parents, and there's a whole deal about the marriage. They're still together, but they're not really married, or the marriage has been dissolved. It's extremely complicated situation.
Yeah, I'm sure it's tough.
Very hard to make sense out of this in the press. So big story this week.
Well, I don't waterboard my kids.
None of us do.
Well, that's good.
I do force them to watch Doctor Who, which could be considered torture by some, but they seem to enjoy it.
I guess the closest you might come is swimming lessons, which not all of them love. But it's for their own good in that case. Learning how to swim is good.
That's true.
Putting somebody's head underwater is a horrible thought, to have to endure. And it's difficult for any parent to try to even imagine that he could do something like that.
Certainly.
To hold her there until the point where she's unconscious. is difficult to imagine.
Uh,
So.
As a parent, I can't imagine that anybody could mistreat their kids, but I don't seem to be the normal. You know, well, maybe normal. I don't get that. I'm not normal. I don't see. I'm not typical of the kind of people that would get in trouble for this kind of stuff. So, let's leave it there.
Yeah, you'd really have to have. You'd really have to be disturbed to want to put your child through any type of abuse that you know they would be suffering from, even just. As he was alleged, and I'm assuming there were witnesses to the fact that he dragged her across the parking lot. I'm assuming there were witnesses to that. That's also unfathomable to most parents to do that. So.
Well, some days you really want to throttle.
Yeah, but you drag them by the arm, or you lose your temper, and usually after they're 7 or so, they know that that's not really. That non-cooperation is not the way to go, and coercion works better. So.
Well, it looks like Bob came back. So, you want to finish? We don't.
Oh, please! Yeah, we had questions and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you know where we last heard.
I'm not sure when I cut off. But did I get to his most recent book, The Jefferson Lies?
Start there.
Yes,
let's
start
do that.
there.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. My computer was El Succo for a minute.
It happens.
Yeah, but so anyway, David Barton, how do you follow up waterboarding children? I mean, okay.
I don't know. His lies are pretty egregious.
Well, okay. So Barton's most recent book, The Jefferson Lies, argues that Thomas Jefferson was basically a pretty solid conservative Christian, one who modern Christians, modern conservatives can favorably compare themselves to and identify with. But this week it came under increased public scrutiny when NPR's Barbara Bradley Haggerty, who I suddenly want to slow dance with, ran a story about Barton and fact-checked his new book, which came out in April. She was assisted by conservative historians, and they found that none of his controversial statements held any water. For instance, he claimed that Jefferson, who owned nearly 200 slaves, was a forerunner of the modern civil rights movement, and it sounds like was basically an abolitionist. Jefferson's hands were tied, claims Barton, by a Virginia law that forbid the release of his slaves during his lifetime. Now, he seems to have come to this conclusion by ignoring the part of the law that said that Virginians could clearly release their slaves while they were alive. So it's very selective viewing of this law, right?
Cherry picking.
Yeah, totally cherry picking. Other claims that didn't hold up included that the Constitution includes verbatim quotes from the Bible, and that Jefferson initiated church services at the Capitol. He claims that documents that bear Jefferson's signature are dated in the year of our Lord Christ, but he doesn't tell his readers, that phrase is already printed on the form. He's just filling in the blanks, right? So he's really kind of, if anybody, in my department were to do something like that, you'd get fired. Now, following the exposure, and he basically that's what happened with Thomas Nelson. Following the public exposure of how misleading his book is, his publisher, Thomas Nelson, announced that they were withdrawing the book from publication. Some might say that this was responsible, but as a writer, I'm kind of stunned that such schlocky garbage got into print without being fact-checked by an editor. And I wonder if Thomas Nelson wouldn't have pulled the book if it hadn't been so thoroughly demolished in the national media. After all, they published books like John Hagee's, this one here, Beginning of the End, The Assassination of Yitzhak Rabin, and The Coming Antichrist. So,
wow.
They haven't pulled this one.
So it doesn't seem like they're really interested in the whole fact thing more as much as selling books.
This is what conservatives are saying, that he's not interested in the facts, that this is not history, and that he's inventing history. Now, the thing is that you can see, I think it was Right Wing Watch, had videos of people taking his history lessons and preaching them to congregations. So he's I know. So this stuff is spreading. So I don't see this as any great move on the part of the publisher. It's actually less than the bare minimum quality check.
I don't want to jump ahead. Maybe you'll talk about this, but what happens to this book, the book rights, now that the publisher has pulled them? Can he take them someplace else? Because obviously the book is going to be in demand. It's in the press.
Right. It was actually already a bestseller, but for now, it looks like he may just publish it under his own Wall Builders organization. That's the name of the group that he's, I think, the CEO of.
Right.
And
so he earned a little bit of money, and now he can publish it himself.
Well, no, he's been doing that for years. This is like the first time he's, as far as I can see, that he's had an outside publisher. And I think that's because Glenn Beck wrote the foreword. So now he has an independent publisher who has to be responsible, sort of, for what's being put out there. And now that they've been embarrassed, they're yanking the book. I imagine that he'll just publish it from Wall Builders. But yeah, what's most concerning about this guy, about David Barton, is that he's a consultant to the Texas School Board and was on their experts panel. You'll also remember that they revised the American history standards that same year. I believe they downplayed the importance of the Enlightenment in the founding of the country and changed it to say that there were other influences too. One of these was the Bible, right? So
I believe you mean the experts panel.
Right. Yes. Big quotes. But yeah, it's and having him as an expert strikes me as having an iridologist as Surgeon General. It's just. And the problem is that these Texas standards are important because publishers craft their textbooks to meet the demands of their biggest markets, and Texas is one of the biggest textbook markets. California is the other one. He's also going to be on the platform committee of the Republican Party at the convention. And so he's well connected, and he's a danger to the integrity of the national education system, and children should point and laugh at him whenever they see him.
And not be waterboarded for it.
He's got
not
a
be
nice
not be waterboarded.
Yeah, there's the thing that gets me is that how he can fabricate, these quotes and these instances so brazenly and still claim any moral authority because he's lying, as far as I can tell.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I maybe he's just that incompetent.
What about the cognitive dissonance there? I mean, he believes these things are true. He doesn't need any facts to support him. Does he actually reference anything in this book?
Yeah.
He does make references, but I don't know if he gives the full. He doesn't cover the evidence fairly, and there are places in there where he's clearly gone to. He should have seen that what he was saying was false. So either he's just really not good at it, or, there's something a little bit more devious going on. It's very hard to see inside someone's head. I mean, that's for sure.
I mean, is this because is the main controversy because this claims to be a history book?
Yes.
Because there's a lot of stuff out there that makes a lot of claims, and it gets published. There's all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could just think off the top of my head all sorts of things.
Well, I think that the problem is that it got national coverage, and I believe the name of the article that NPR ran was "The Most Important Conservative You Never Heard of." So that seems to be setting the stage for the major reaction on the part of the publisher. They've published questionable stuff before, but nobody's paid this much attention to it.
So
and it's also...
Go ahead.
Sorry. It's also that it's sort of rewriting American history. It's an important aspect of American history that students all learn about, and he's
saying that it's
part
lies.
Of the expression whitewashing. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the kind of the funny thing about this, and by funny I mean not hilarious at all.
Funny, disturbing, not funny, ha.
Right. He seems to be painting this idyllic past that he wishes America could have. His idea is that it was basically the Inquisition. that it was all religious fanatics were establishing this new country. He finds that very attractive. So he's just writing that history because he likes it. I would like the country to have been founded by hobbits. So,
And I don't see him as very different than, other religious people who will discount scientific facts because they don't like them.
Oh, exactly.
They're also on this experts panel for the Texas school board, I think.
Yeah. I was looking at his at the introduction to his book, and he was saying, well, history is just so liberal. That reminded me of something that Stephen Colbert said, that reality has a liberal bias.
Yes, I love that quote.
But he said, and then he points to all these like postmodernism and minimalism, and all these isms that are from the latter half of the 20th century. But he doesn't seem to take into account that people have been saying that this was a secular nation ever since the very beginning. Yeah. He just ignores that, and he looks at and badly misinterprets these historical movements. So he's really kind of bad all around at what he claims to do.
Yeah, that was a fascinating story. I did hear the original report on NPR and was just astounded that somebody could have that much power and influence.
Mm-hmm. Mike Huckabee at one point, this was in the NPR story, Mike Huckabee said that he thought that people should be forced to watch a telecast at gunpoint, and that the country would be better off for it.
Yeah, we included that quote. Scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, facts in this realm mean very, very little.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Oh dear.
So you could say he was seeing things.
It was very good.
I smell a segue.
Yes, and who's up next? Eve. Eve has got to tell us about seeing things, interesting things in stuff.
Reasonably interesting. We're all familiar with the phenomenon of Jesus or his mom or other important religious figures like Elvis appearing in wood grain trees, sandwiches, rocks, tortillas, and dog butts. And among the more famous examples is Our Lady of the Grilled Cheese, even though she actually looks more like Bernadette Peters.
That's what I was thinking,
Gibson's girl.
That's awesome.
Last month, a makeshift shrine grew around a tree in West New York, New Jersey. The faithful claim to see the Virgin Mary in a scar on the tree's bark. Some of the less faithful see a vagina. The image supposedly appeared after a man was killed in a car crash nearby. The shrine and crowds have grown to such proportions, or they had last month, that police built a barricade around it to protect the visitors from cars, thus irritating people in cars. Mayor Felix Roque, or Roque, I'm not sure, wants to make the shrine permanent. He also says it brings him comfort in troubled times. He's currently facing indictment for hacking into the computers of his political rivals, but he is a religious man, he says. But now it turns out miraculous appearances aren't just for religious figures anymore. Recently, Grateful Dead fan Tom Halpert discovered the image of Jerry Garcia in a jar of horseradish sauce. He's thinking of selling it on eBay or starting a website called jerryinajar.com. He is, however, concerned that he might lose his relic if he loses power during hurricane season because he's in Florida. By the way, he also claims to have been totally sober when he first saw Jerry in a jar.
I was not impressed by that image. I saw
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's as good as the Virgin Mary and the tree
true.
bark, though.
They're all ridiculous.
Yeah. Another man has already lost his potentially profitable relic. A bird, or could it have been an angel in disguise? I'm not sure. Left a Michael Jackson-shaped poop on Brandon Tudor's 1996 Cadillac Seville.
I love this story a lot.
I saw this one on Doubtful News.
Yes, I could not resist that one. It was so stupid.
Yeah. Every time everyone Tudor showed the poop to agreed that, yes, it absolutely did look like Michael Jackson. And more miraculous, when the guano hardened, it looked even more like the King of Pop.
So wait, did you have to sit inside the car to see it, or could you see it from the outside? That's what I didn't understand.
I'm not sure. I think you could see it from the outside.
Okay.
So Tudor put the windshield up on eBay with a minimum starting bid of $500. There were exactly no bids whatsoever. So
who wants to buy poop?
Tudor was going to sell it on a Chicago
somebody.
radio station, WGN AM, but then it all fell apart. Rain washed away the holy image. I know. And it's really hard to believe that it happened because Tudor had protected the image by scotch taping a sandwich baggie over the poop.
This and never fails.
Never fails.
And he points out, I mean, there was drought forever, and then who would have thought it would rain?
God was pissed at him.
Are you kidding? Are you kidding? Watch this.
Fortunately, photographic evidence remains, so Tudor hopes to sell King of Pop T-shirts. Now these are...
I'm totally getting one of these T-shirts.
These are humorous, if slightly, ridiculous stories, but there is kind of a serious element here, which is
there were no survivors.
Well, obviously, the bird poop spread, and no. The fact that someone can see the face of Jerry Garcia in horseradish sauce, excuse me, and once it's been pointed out, you kind of can see it, does bring the miraculous nature of the holy images into question. Is there anything miraculous about Jerry in a jar? No, there's nothing miraculous about Jerry in a jar. Is there anything miraculous about Michael Jackson in bird poop? Probably not.
Sorry, that had to get put up.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, you can take it down now.
And that was really
lingered a little bit too long.
And by the way, it's not. I was researching this afternoon. And turns out that's not the only dog who's been blessed.
If you want to call it that. I think in Louisiana it's called something else.
Yeah. So.
You do not want to see the transfiguration.
That's for sure.
So, is there anything miraculous about the Virgin Mary in a tree stump? Probably not. It seems to all be pareidolia, the brain just seeking patterns and finding them. Even the church thinks, this is from a spokesman, Jim Goodness, which is a fabulous name for a church spokesman, but he says it's probably
it's a stage name.
Yeah, just some discolorization that resembles Our Lady of Guadalupe. But he says if it helps people be stronger in their faith, then that's a good thing. I think it's more natural to try to encounter God in church, not by expressing your faith in a tree or to a tree.
Now, tree knots automatically sort of look like the Virgin.
Yeah.
Tree knots have that elongated up and down oval that just automatically looks like a face with the with the veil or shroud over it. It just does.
Right. And yeah, she is just more of a shape than any.
Do you have a picture of that?
There are pictures of it.
Do we have that on our PowerPoint channel?
We don't have.
No, I have the links ready for the.
We'll put it. In the
put it on the show notes.
And purported images of Jesus and Mary are so common. There are a number of websites devoted to them. One of them is stuffthaatlooksLikeJesus.com. And interestingly, they have, I think, 4 sections. There's Jesus, there's Mary and Jesus, Virgin and Child, and, yes, an Elvis category. because he's seen really quite commonly as well. Again, would suggest that these are not all miraculous appearances, but are just the mind imagining things.
It could mean that Elvis will come again.
No, he's working at a Burger King in Kalamazoo, Michigan, I think. Isn't he still?
Yeah.
Last I heard, he was.
I thought he played for the White Sox. No, that's Jesus. Sorry.
No, he was part of the JPL team, wasn't he?
I totally just searched for looks like Tom Selleck on a whim. And there's no looks like Tom Selleck site, so I'm disappointed. I may have to make that.
The best looks like I don't know if it was Jesus or Mary appeared in a moldy shower. Do you remember that from a number of months ago? It turned up on a local news station, and they went to these people's house, and it was bad. It was like hoarders. It was like clean your shower.
Yeah.
When you see Jesus in your mold, in the mold in their shower, you got an issue.
Yeah.
I've also seen, supposed Jesuses before that people then showed to other people, and I have seen Jesus identified as Jerry Garcia, or Frank Zappa comes up quite a lot.
John Lennon, Charles Manson,
Right.
Yeah, often.
Charles Manson's not dead.
I know, but he tends to show up.
But he's still miraculous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whenever we put one of these images on Doubtful News, we ask people, who does this look like? And the dude comes up a lot, and George Harrison, and Frank Zappa, very popular. We don't know what Jesus looked like. Isn't that the issue?
Yeah, he's mostly just hair and facial hair.
Would that be a logical conclusion to make, that Jesus had long hair and facial hair?
No, that's a convention of the Renaissance, isn't it?
That's what
it's an artistic convention. Yeah, absolutely.
But would it have been normal at that time for him to look like that?
Actually,
he would have looked Jewish.
Yeah, very Jewish. But there was that image that much more Jewish than the blonde-eyed Aryan. There was an image, and I don't remember who made it a facial reconstruction of what Jesus would have looked like, and I believe it's basically typical Middle Eastern male of the time period, and I think he actually was clean shaven.
Really?
Yeah, which I don't know about Jewish conventions of facial hair over time, but so.
Yeah, I was always curious. Is there one painting? Is there one piece of art that people draw off the most about the image of Jesus, like the Shroud of Turin and stuff like that?
Well, the Shroud of Turin was, fits the artistic ideal of the time period as well.
Yeah. That in fact could be used as an argument against it.
It is used as an argument against it, but I don't know. Yeah. There's that one Raphael painting that I think that Jesus with very soft features, which I think is probably one of many, but an influential one on the way. And it's kind of late. The idea that the long hair and beard is already established by that time, but we all know that sort of hideous one where he, with his head on the side, looking.
What you thinking about, Jesus? Oh, salvation.
So the one thing I was curious about is if these people who post these images online of these paranolic things, if because a lot of them are copied over and over again. I wonder if there's any licensing issues related to this, and I'm trying desperately for a segue here. Tim's going to be talking about Google stuff with licensing, so work with me.
All right.
I think that these people just want these images to be seen because they want attention, they want to feel special.
And some of them want money.
Tim certainly wants to feel special.
Right, to sell the items, yeah. Just
Okay.
hand it off.
Yes. Okay. Well, next is Tim, who's going to talk about Google and its legal problems, right?
Yeah, there were a number of stories this week that kind of focused around Google and the law and websites. And the first one really isn't that much Google stuff, but it was an interesting law thing that could be useful to skeptics. A blogger by the name of Eric Goldman, who writes about technology and marketing law, found a case and where someone sued Gawker. And Gawker was writing a takedown on a piece of technology. The title of the piece on Gizmodo, it was on the Gizmodo blog, which is part of the Gawker network, was called "Smoke and Mirrors: The Greatest Scam in Tech." And they basically were saying that this product that this guy was selling looked like it probably wasn't a real thing. And he sued them for, the company sued them for, libel, whatever, and misrepresentation. And essentially, the judge's ruling all talked about transparency. And one of the key quotes was, "The sources upon which the authors rely for their conclusions are specified, and the article incorporates active links to many of the original sources, mainly websites and promotional material created by the plaintiff. Having ready access to the same facts as the authors, readers were put in a position to draw their own conclusions. Statements generally considered to be non-actionable opinion when the facts supporting the opinion are disclosed." So this, I thought this was really interesting for skeptics. They were basically saying that, you get a little bit of an out. I mean, obviously you still can't say anything, particularly if you live in England, the idea is link to the original material, point to your sources, which is something that skeptics say all the time, and point out what's wrong, and quote it and link to the original material, and that way your readers can see the original material and draw their own conclusions. And then if you do get sued, you can say, hey, look, I laid it all out there. I laid out my opinion, and I laid out the original facts, and I don't think I did any, I think I have a defense here. And
I got caught on that once.
Yeah?
I linked to a story that misquoted the person in the story.
Oh.
And he contacted me through back channels, through Facebook, instead of going straight to the site, which was odd, and said, how dare you post this crap from, what happened to be, Fox News. And
oh no, that was your first mistake.
Yeah, well, it could have been anybody, because
right.
He had made these statements, I suppose. I don't know. It was the only station. It was the only news source that carried it. But he said obviously they were mistaken, and you reproduced it. And I said, if you have a correction, give it to me. I will post it. Right. It turned out he wasn't really interested in that. He was just interested in harassing me. But that was my comeback. If you have a problem with Fox News, go to Fox News.
Right.
I'm willing to post a retraction from you, and whatever you want, I will post it. Fox News probably won't do that. I will do that. He still threatened me with libel. And I pulled the story because I don't want to deal with a crazy person.
Yeah.
Related question is,
of course, I was going to sue you for calling him crazy, but
Right.
Well, I didn't to his face, and he's not watching.
So, and you didn't name him.
I guess this doesn't handle a case where you've cited things that disappear on the net or get edited.
Yeah, that could be a problem. It's always a problem when people edit their sources. I did a whole article about using web page capture tools a long time ago, about how skeptics can use them to capture things like website and
we use that a lot.
Page, to capture the way a page looked on a certain date and have a neutral site that you can point to and say, hey, look, here's the capture that I created using website on June 5th or whatever. So this is what it looked like on that day, and at least you have something of an out. And there have been some interesting cases where people have gotten captures of psychics' web pages and caught them adjusting their predictions retroactively and that kind of stuff.
Website is great for if you're publishing an article.
Yeah.
you want it in a place where people can access it maybe 5 years from now. I don't know how website is going to, web CITE
Right.
is going to hold up, but they've been around for a while, and I have a number of pages there that I've referenced in writing.
Yeah. The second element of my Google legal story is more related to Google itself. Google recently announced, a lot of what Google does has to do with the number of links that come to your site and what those links say and what sites they come from. But they claim over 200 different signals that Google can use to decide how to rate your website, like the text on the page, what your URLs look like, even sometimes how fast your website loads. With two sites being equal for the same piece of information, if your site tends to load slower, Google may knock it down a peg. Well, they recently announced that they're going to start factoring in, and it's not known how much they're going to factor it in, copyright takedown notices. So if your site has been served with copyright takedowns, in other words, you were violating someone else's copyright and they have filed an official notice against you with Google, presumably, that Google will factor that in to their ranking. And the idea is that when you type something like, I want to watch Batman online free, hopefully that will start to push the pirate sites down in the rankings, and you'll be more likely to get the official Warner Brothers or whoever actually has Batman online. So Hulu will start to come up to the top in rankings for the shows that are actually on Hulu and that sort of thing. So on its face, it seems like it might have a good effect. And of course, nobody knows exactly how Google's going to factor this in and what kind of weight they're going to give it, but there's a lot of folks that are wary of copyright and censorship issues that are kind of wary of this and have sort of decried it on its face just on the announcement. And of course, the potential exists for abuse in the skeptic realm. If you are criticizing, say, a psychic, and maybe you use a picture of that psychic or a snip of video or something on your site to criticize them, it might be fair use according to you, but if they file a copyright notice against you and you have to take it down, or they ask Google to take you out of the listings, that might end up pushing your site down in the results, and you don't really get censored, but effectively less people can find you, so it becomes harder to get readers.
Yeah, that was my first thought when I heard about this. Is that there are a lot of skeptic sites, when they get attention from the people that they're criticizing, they can get a barrage of frivolous attacks. And this is like, if you have anything that they can possibly attack, they'll.
And it's not just not one case is against you. It's just complaints.
Yeah, it's supposedly the number of successful copyright complaints that have been made against your site.
Successful ones, so they have to prove it.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions about, whether or not, because with the DMCA you can file a request and then the site can file a response to that request. There's a whole paperwork situation that goes on. So it's not entirely clear if Google waits for the whole paperwork to proceed to the end before they factor this in, or how they factor this in. So it's a little bit kind of iffy at this point, but it's something to keep an eye on, particularly if Google gives some more guidance. A lot of times when Google announces that they're going to do things like this, if there's a lot of controversy about it, sometimes later they'll explain a little bit more. And I'll provide some links to some sites, obviously, in the show notes about this that go into more detail. But the other Google story that I had involves our old friend Mike Adams.
Yay!
Yay. He's a
He's
favorite of skeptics. Anybody watching, if you're not familiar with Mike Adams, he runs a whole series of alternative medical websites. And lately he seems to have become a real conspiracy theorist.
He sometimes subs for Alex Jones.
Yeah, he's involved with Alex Jones. He does interviews for Alex Jones. He subs for him on his show. So he's really gotten into that end of it. But his main thing is selling supplements and alt-med stuff. But whenever he can, he goes off into the conspiracy realm. And normally I wouldn't talk about Mike Adams because I'm not an alt-med expert. I'd leave it to Steve Novella or somebody like that to talk about him. But he had an article recently on his site, which I will probably not link in the show notes, just because I don't like linking to his website because it's horrible. But the title of the article, if you want to go find it, is called "Google Complies with FDA Demands to Secretly Disable AdWords Accounts of Nutritional Detox Companies." And now AdWords is the part of Google where you can buy ads based on keywords. So you can put an ad that appears on a website or on Google based on the keywords used on that website or in the search. So if somebody searches, you run a restaurant in Atlanta, and someone searches for American Restaurant Atlanta, you can buy an ad that will show up in the Google search during that. So obviously a lot of the alt-med people buy these ads, and of course over the years skeptics who've had Google ads on their site complain because they talk about detox and then an ad for detox appears right next to their skeptical debunk. But anyway, Mike Adams got a report that one of his buddies, globalhealingcenter.com, which was selling chelation and detox, heavy metal detox products. And this is all, quackery. And there was a ruling about 2 years ago, I guess now, where the FDA basically said, okay, look, this is not approved. You cannot sell chelation products over the counter to the general public. Stop doing it. And they noticed, Google noticed that this guy was selling these ads through AdWords, and they shut his account down. Now, he pitches it as, well, there was no FDA complaint against this particular guy, and Google is just making up these rules and doing this secretly without telling anyone. And it's really a bunch of nonsense, because if you do, oddly enough, a Google search for AdWords rules, and I will link to this in the show notes, there's a very clear and very detailed set of rules in AdWords about things you are not allowed to advertise in the health area.
Heroin?
Yeah, heroin. You're not allowed to advertise things over the counter that are supposed to be a prescription. You're not supposed to make claims that are
bribery,
ridiculous, etc., etc. It's all detail out there.
Pokemon.
One of the things is that you're not supposed to make misleading claims. And it's funny because in the article, Mike Adams says, interestingly, Natural News agrees with the FDA that there are some fraudulent nutritional products being sold on the market. Yeah, no kidding, Mike.
Yeah, wow, my head just exploded.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's how he gets his, tries to look a little bit more credible, is occasionally he outs some competing product and says that it's not real. But anyway, basically this guy was violating the AdWords rules that are clearly stated on the AdWords site, and Google told him you're violating the rules, and they cited the FDA warning page, and they said, okay, look, remove this from your ad. Remove this from your site and remove it from your ads, and we'll reactivate your account. It was a very simple thing that Google does all the time. And
those
Adams
bastards
is trying to make a big giant conspiracy. Google is censoring us thing out of it. So it's a
They
big
can't
bunch of
lose
nonsense.
with that claim.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the problem is I'm sure they would rather let people advertise whatever they want to advertise, because there's various feedback mechanisms in AdWords so that ads that are bad of products that people don't want actually do kind of automatically disappear off the system. But there are federal laws about this stuff. The FDA rules you cannot advertise certain products.
So you're saying that Google's in on it with the federal government?
So it goes all the way up to the top.
In the same way that I'm in on it when I obey the speed limit.
You fascist.
they're trying not to violate the rules, because if they continue to do that, the government would go after Google, and the government has gone after Google occasionally for letting things happen on their ad platform that were against various rules and regulations.
Who would be the agency that would go after them?
Well, if it was medical, it would be FDA.
Okay.
If it was other sorts of trade things, it would probably be the FTC in the United States.
Yeah.
The Bureau of Tyranny.
It would be different agencies in other countries, obviously.
It's all government, isn't it?
I see.
Right. And I guess we still have time for me to talk about a little bit about...
If you do it quick, because then we have to do book time, because it's like my favorite part.
All right, well, real quick, I was hoping to have a link today to a new Montreal Gazette article about our friend David Mabus. There is a Montreal Gazette article that has been written, but the lawyers are pushing back on it, from what I'm told. So look on the Montreal Gazette site tomorrow sometime. Hopefully the lawyers will approve some wording of it. And essentially the gist of it is that, as many of you know, he pled to an 18-month suspended sentence on May 22nd, and I was told by the reporter who was in court that he was given restrictions, and that's what he wrote in his article, that he was restricted from blogs, discussion groups, or social media. And that is what he started doing immediately after that. He started with YouTube, and then he extended to discussion forums, and now he's all over the blogs. He's on just various blogs, writing in typical fashion the same exact comment over and over and over with the same exact link, just like he was doing last year. And it's pretty clear to all of us that he's violating the court order. And we've called the police, we've called the prosecutor, we've emailed them evidence, and none of them want to do anything. The prosecutor won't even respond to me. The detective did respond to me, but said that her paperwork said there were no restrictions on him. So her hands were tied. So now we've gotten the Gazette involved, and the Gazette says there are restrictions. How come you don't know about them? And that's going to be the gist of the article tomorrow, is that the police and the court are not communicating. Hopefully that will be the gist of it. I have not seen it. But that the police and the court are not communicating with each other, and some action needs to be taken. So hopefully we will see some action. And ironically, all of this is happening 1 year to the week from when the original takedown happened. He was arrested August 16th last year, so we're coming up on the 1 year anniversary.
Has he been increasing his presence, or is it just the same couple websites?
No, it's been speeding up. If you Google Divine Pen Atheist Nostradamus, you will see he's been on many websites recently.
Oh, dear. He hasn't found us yet.
No. He was focusing on free thought blogs for a while, and then on the forums. I haven't seen a lot of activity from him this week. He was very active right around the end of July and the first couple days of August, and I haven't seen much this week. It's possible he's posting on some, or he may have changed what he's posting, and I'm just not noticing it. But I had sort of given up tracking him too closely because it looked like the police weren't going to do anything, so I wasn't going to collect a lot of evidence for nothing.
Well, be sure to look for that post tomorrow. It's in what paper is that again?
That'll be in the Montreal Gazette, montrealgazette.com.
Okay.
And I also have an alert waiting, for that to come up.
Oh, okay.
Google alert.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Set your alert.
Yes, set your Google alert so you won't miss it, and I'll post the link on Doubtful News when it comes up.
I won't post the link on Skeptical Humanities.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
Don't sully your
Well, it looks like we've covered all of our bases today. What was that? Is that our finished music?
It could be YouTube telling you, "Are you still there?"
Yes, yes, it did that to me as well. Unfortunately, we had some questions this week and didn't have time to get to them. I apologize to everybody. Book time. I haven't picked out a book. Have you guys already picked a book?
I have a book.
Yeah.
Why don't you go first, Tim?
We need a number.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. What's your number?
84.
Works. That works.
Okay. 84.
Oh, dear.
another number.
What is it?
Sure.
Is it racy?
No, it's just not good.
Oh, well, that's the point. It's
That's
supposed to
all
be
right.
random.
Okay.
If you get close to 84.
All right.
Okay, can I go?
Okay, go ahead, Bob.
When Scripture tells us that heaven and earth will pass away, you can be sure that this world will definitely end. There will be a last baby born, a last marriage performed, a last kiss, a last song, a last hurrah. This world will not continue forever. The second law of thermodynamics, otherwise known as the law of entropy, declares that all organized systems tend to disorder after time. Like all things, the earth, along with this physical universe, will wear out.
Wow, that was quite a passage.
I have one that's sort of similar to that.
Go for it.
Follows nicely along. Frequently in the pseudoscientific literature directed against Einstein, one meets with a violent prejudice against complex mathematical equations. The author, of course, does not understand them, so he rationalizes his ignorance by insisting that nature always obeys simple mathematical laws.
That's convenient.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah.
Who's next?
I have one that's not related at all.
Go for it. Trying to wrap up.
Egil was equipped like Thorolf, girded with a sword that he called Adder, and had received in Courland, an outstanding weapon. Neither of them wore a coat of mail.
Nice. Tim?
At the last moment of the act, Robinson produced a bowl of water, but it had been damaged by careless stagehands.
I know this book.
Water spilled everywhere. Despite this setback, the muse smiled on the Robinsons. At that moment, they were picked up by a London agent who managed to overlook the spilled water.
What
Okay.
a tragedy.
And I got mine right here. Let's see. The audience must be taught that the driving force behind Magic Bar is not, in fact, the magic, but rather the unique environment the magic affords. The audience must somehow learn that the real fun comes from watching other people react to magic that they have themselves perhaps seen before. Yet again, it falls to the performer to meet this demand and synthesize such an environment.
Indeed.
Sounds like we were both reading from books about magic.
Yes, we were. Who wants to reveal first? Go ahead, Bob.
I just did The Beginning of the End by John Hagee because it was here.
Sharon?
Mine was Fads and Fallacies.
Oh,
In the
that's a
Name of
good one.
Science, Smart and Gardner.
Nice. Eve?
Ale Saga, from Sagas of Icelanders.
Ooh.
Ooh.
And mine is The History of Conjuring by James Rand.
Nice.
Esquire.
Yep. Mine,
A signed copy.
mine is Shattering Illusions by Jamie Ian Swiss.
Oh, we should have
nice.
we should have had little Jamie Ian Swiss in his own little box today, you know? That'd been great.
I don't find a problem with skeptics and atheists together, and here's a flaming book. Okay,
Great.
well, I guess that's it. That's in the bag, and we are the Virtual Skeptics. Start the music.
We have to add